Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us again for Media That Matters. I'm your host, Cornell Jermaine. If you missed our episode last week with Miss Mickey Taylor, the editor-in-chief of Essence Magazine, be sure to check that out. You can scroll down here right on Facebook and you'll catch the full episode of what Mickey and I talked about last week. But this week, I have my brother. Listen, I want to give him the proper introduction, so bear with me. Thank you for joining me. He is hailing all the way from Abuja, Nigeria. Listen to his background. He's the founder and CEO of Rage Media, a company focused on positioning, partnering, promoting, and building brands. He is the founder of Brainbox, a digital transformation company focused on helping clients move from a brick and mortar to a digital business model. In addition, he has experience in marketing, communications that span across automobile, financial, and real estate industries, just to name a few. Please help me welcome my brother, as I said before, hailing all the way from Abuja, Nigeria, Mr. George Omoraro. How are you,
George? Awesome stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on this. Yeah.
Yes, I'm so glad you are here. Listen, you're all the way in Nigeria. You guys, it is 11 p.m. right now in Nigeria, but through the power of technology, I didn't have to fly all the way to Nigeria, and he didn't have to fly all the way to the States, but we were able to connect right here via live Facebook to talk to you. First, you're all the way in Nigeria. I got to get some idea of the landscape there. What is it like there with all this going on in the world? How is the climate there?
Okay, so it's a bit different, over here because I would like to compare what I see here with what I see on CNN, right? So we keep seeing the numbers up and all of that, with all the commotion, all the drama with your elections coming and stuff like that. So over here, it's a bit, we're looking at less than 10,000 cases, right, for the past 9 months, and just a little over 1,000 deaths. So we don't really understand what's going on. I'll say that, because we're expecting to see spikes, and all of that, based on the fact that the healthcare system over here is a bit, poor as compared to what you have over there in the States. So it's quite shocking to many of us that things are a bit different over here. I think businesses have also picked up. It started really slow when there were lockdowns, shutdowns, and all of that, and then businesses had to close for a bit, but things picked up, revenues have gone back up. We're getting customers, getting calls, getting new businesses and stuff like that. So I think it's reasonably fair over here. I should also add that, we got a lot of clients even from the States, people wanting us to do their branding for them and stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Quite impressive,
That is.
And it came from both communities, not just the Black community, permit me to say. It came from, we had some people, also from white folks, wanting us to do business together and do their branding for them and stuff like that. So yeah, it's been a really good time. I think what this season did in particular was to level the playing field. The fact that everyone was, put in their houses and limited to their mobile devices and their laptops and stuff, you start discovering new friends, making new friends, building a new network, meeting new people. Those are the things that happen, spectacularly for us over here. So, for instance, I'm connecting with you now.
Yes.
I can only imagine that one way or the other, the pandemic and the situation, kind of fast-tracked this, made this possible. Everyone started thinking about doing streams and all of that. So yeah, I think good times, if you ask me.
Yes, absolutely. I have to get into your background. You are an entrepreneur in the branding, marketing, tech industry. But talk about your journey to entrepreneurship. How did your journey begin?
Well, I must always say that it wasn't a deliberate one. I'll be quite frank with you. I started out in this industry, actually. I started in 2010, yeah, which is 10 years ago. So, I
Yes.
started out I worked on a few brands like Guinness. I'm sure you know about Guinness. Yeah. So I worked on Guinness as my first shot in the game. And I did that. I did a lot of social media campaigns and stuff like that. And that was how I started building interest in the marketing communication space. And then come 2011, 2012, I started working on Ford, Panasonic, and then there was Nokia. Nokia was still Nokia then, now you have the iPhone, Samsung and that. But then Nokia was a big player, especially in the Nigerian market, So I started working on these brands and then I started growing a portfolio. At some point, I got an opportunity to partner with someone to kick off a digital marketing firm in Lagos. Now, Lagos is like your commercial hub. It's like New York, right? So Abuja is like Washington, D.C., right? So Lagos is like New York. That's the way it is. So in Lagos, while I was in Lagos, then I started something with some guy. We're building a digital firm. It didn't work out. We got big accounts like Durex, like Dettol, like Harpic, some of those brands, from Reckitt Benckiser family, Martini, a number of pitches which we won, but it was mismanaged. I'll say it was mismanaged. So apparently, it didn't work out.
Wow.
Yeah, but on that gig, I discovered how valuable, I was on a team. It helped me realize my potential, helped me realize my capacity in terms of what I could deliver and the kind of value I could bring to a brand, and so since that mistake I made of leaving my job at JWT, by the way, JWT then was probably number 4 agency in the global rating, JWT is part of the WPP group, if you're familiar with most of these things, Yeah, so I left that job to go do this partnership with this guy, but it didn't work out. And so I made up my mind I was going to do something on my own eventually, but I needed to garner some experience and, build a network before I stepped out. So that was how, so up until 2016 from 2012 to 2016, I was still working. 2012 to 2016, I was working different places, different agencies, working on various brands. And then by 2016, I took a break for a year, to plan and strategize. And then that is what birthed what you call Rage Media today, which has become a very familiar name on the lips of many. It was quite tough starting out, it was extremely tough. In fact, there was a time, I'll tell you quite frankly, in 2017, when we started out in February, by the time it was August, we were already indebted, to about, I think it was about $100,000 then. And this is because we're gotten what you call LPOs, so purchase orders, right? We're started buying media and delivering, but the procurement process of this particular client required that an invoice will spend about 3 months in their office before you get paid. So this is it. They give you a job, they say, I want to run this campaign, want to run it for 7 months, go and execute. And then you go and execute, right? But they're not going to give you funds to execute. They expect you to use your funds and then you come back and get the money in 3 months, which is 90 days. So it might be a bit alien to you, but from our experience in this climb, right, you do not get investors who just say, oh, you have a business idea, take $1 million. No, you literally have to gather all your savings, call your parents, call everybody, gather money, and then start a business. So that was where I was then. I was owing a lot of money, but eventually this picked up, and then it was a total different story. I also had the support of tremendous people who were part of my team from the start, some of which, 90% of which are still, on the team now. And then they stood by me. You know, there was a time we couldn't even afford to pay the rent of what we're using for the office, you know, but these guys kept pushing and all of that. So it's a very funny story. I tell you, you know, these are things that they're probably strange to you, but in this part of the world, and that's the way it is. You build from scratch. As a matter of fact, you don't build from scratch, you build from a pit, because it feels like someone dug a pit and threw you. So you have to build your way up, you know. That's exactly the way it was. You know, funny story.
That is funny. You say you don't build from scratch, you build from a pit. So you got to
Yeah.
build your way out of the pit first.
First, then you start building. Exactly.
Wow. What is so beautiful about your story is you said you took a year to strategize.
Yes.
I think many of us in America who are in business or entrepreneurship, we understand the idea of building from scratch and even from a pit, if you will. But
Right.
I very, very rarely hear people who take a year to plan out the steps that they're going to take in business. Why was that important to you?
Well, I you know, I heard this growing up. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. You know, so it was stuck in my head somewhere that I needed a blueprint, okay, which would always guide me. There's a very interesting book I've been reading, probably my second or third time reading it. It's called Measure What Matters, right? And this is by John Doerr. Now, so what he believes is you must set objectives and key results. And what this does is at every point on your journey, maybe your 6 months journey, 1 year journey, you can go back to these things and say, how am I performing vis-a-vis my intentions, you know, before I started? So that's what planning is to me. I need to decide, okay, what am I going to do? Who are the kind of people I need? Why am I going to be different? You know, what's different about my service? Why should people pay me money? Have I built enough trust into my name? Am I going to play in Lagos or play in Abuja? For instance, it was in that time I decided I was going to play in Abuja, and the reason was because I was looking for a blue ocean. So in strategy, there's what you call a blue ocean strategy, a red ocean strategy. The red ocean is where you have sharks. So you have bigger players, big boys, just like in New York, you have the Madison Avenue, where all the agencies are, the madmen are. You know, if you go as a small agency, start up something in New York, you're going to get eaten, you know, eaten raw and torn apart. So that's the same thing we have in Lagos. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to play in Abuja. I'm literally going to build the industry in Abuja, you know, just like I know it happened in the Motor City, that's Detroit, when agencies started moving to Detroit because of the boom in the automobile industry, you know. So that was the same thing I saw. I saw a market. You know, I think another thing that inspired me taking time out was I needed to see. Okay, a lot of leaders lead without a vision. Like you can't tell where you're going in 5 years. You can't tell where you're going in 10 years. You don't have you don't have a master plan. So what you have is you have tactics, you know, stop gaps. So you do something for 3 months, you get tired, you stop it. You have to look for something else to do because you don't have a master plan, you know. So whilst I was having that financial crisis in my first 8 months in business, I still remembered where I was going, and that kept me focused, you know. And this is because I had taken time out to plan first before I proceeded, before I came out. Right. So if I mean, someone says this, I can't remember who. He says if you're given an axe and 4 hours to cut down a tree, spend 3 hours sharpening the axe, and then spend 1 hour cutting the tree. You know, yeah. So that was what the planning was. It was me sharpening myself up. It was a different ball game. I had to become a CEO, right? I was no longer going to be an ad man. Now, being a CEO for me means I have to be a businessman. I have to be versatile. I must know a little about everything. So, for instance, I meet somebody who is in real estate. I must be able to hold conversations with him in real estate. I must be able to I must enter the space of a consultant. I must be able to advise him even beyond advertising, so it had to do with a lot of reading. I'm sure in 2016, I read at least 30 books. No, maybe 50 books in 2016. Yeah, and then in 2017, I did about 54, because up until 2019, I used to read a book a week, because it was very important for me to empower myself with enough knowledge so that when I speak to people, because what I've discovered is, first, you're seen, second, you're heard.
Yes.
And third, you're tried. So I had to work on those three things. First, I had to work on my look. If someone sees me, will they do business with me? Do I look like someone they're going to want to do business with? And the second thing, I had to work on what I knew, what was upstairs, because that's what I could say. You can't give what you don't have. I posted something one time. I said, a dead battery cannot jump a dead battery. So if you're empty, you're going to spit empty. So I had to take in so much knowledge so that every time I spoke to anybody who was a prospect or a suspect, I had something to say. And then third, I had to build capacity. Right. So I had to learn everything about the field. I brag a lot that I can do everything and anything in relation to branding, design, copywriting, a little bit of web design and all of that. I have the basic knowledge, which makes me versatile, which makes me extremely competitive, against most of the people in the industry. Yeah.
Wow. That is so beautiful. I got to repeat that for the listeners and the viewers. You said first you are seen,
yep,
then you are heard, and
yep,
then you are tried.
Yep.
Wow. Talk about that.
The funny part. Yeah. The funny part is, after you're tried, you're either trusted or you're dumped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's a complete cycle. You're seen, you're heard, you're tried, then you're either trusted or you're dumped.
Wow. So good. So good. I love that. Listen, you built your company, Rage Media, from 0 employees to now multiple employees. Talk about that hiring process. What was the determining factor that said, okay, I need to bring on help? And were you in position to pay them, or how did that work out?
Okay, yeah. So like I said earlier, I had a financial crisis for a bit. So for like 3 months, I could actually not pay, anyone. But I really would not be able to say there's a particular reason why they stayed, because each person has their story, quite all right. But one thing I was confident about was where we were going, and like I said earlier, the vision. Do you as a business, you're starting a business, do you know what your business is going to be like in 5 years? Do you even understand the industry you're playing enough, to know what the industry, what the climb is going to be like in 5 years, and how much of that market are you going to own in 5 years? So all those things, I kept painting that picture to these people. I said, guys, we're starting out, we're going to lead this market. It wasn't we were not contenders at any point. We saw ourselves as champions always, as a superstar brand. So even when we had nothing, we presented ourselves like we had everything. So we had that energy, that vibe, that zest in us. It was a hunger. But one amazing thing that people fail to talk about a lot, is culture. The culture of the house always impacts on the performance of the team. So we have a culture of love. If you find anybody at Rage today, we're like family, all of us. We care for one another. We're friends beyond work. We know our family. We relate with our family. My colleagues, their parents call me, to check on me. We're that intense with our culture of love. So I feel that held us bound. I believe so much in something that I say a lot. And I say that where there's love, there's prosperity. It is difficult for you to have prosperity when there's envy, when there's strife, when there's disunity, discord, but once there's love, we are working towards the same goal. We're going in the same direction. We'll move faster. No one is drawing us back. That was the first thing. The second thing that I believe worked a lot for us is the fact that we were able to align individual goals to our organizational goals. So we sit at the beginning of the year, and then I ask questions. I say, how much do you intend to make this year personally? And then we go on and on and on, and we drag it, and we arrive at a figure. And then I say, how can you make that from this place? If we have a few success stories, which goes to prove that these things work. Okay, I intend to take this on a larger scale eventually, to teach organizational culture. A lot of people teach organizational structure so much, but I feel that culture is so important. Sometimes your culture should be the structure. So a lot of times people I just focus on the organogram. Beyond the organogram, when we were starting out, I did not have a designation on my card. I used to tell everyone, you can walk up to anybody and say, hey, I'm the CEO at Ridge, because I wanted everyone to have a sense of ownership. Because the sense of, when you own something, you treat it differently. If I use your car today, I won't drive as carefully as I would drive when I'm using my own car, which I bought with my own money.
That's right.
It's a bit different in Nigeria, because in Nigeria, we buy cars fully paid. I tell you, you want to buy your house, you pay in full. You want to buy your car, you pay in full. Everything is different here. So it pays you when you, like, you pile up money and then you go buy a car. So I will drive my car with so much care, because it's mine. So I wanted everyone to have that sense of ownership. And yes. I keep driving that till date. So we started out with, I think we started out with 4 employees, myself included. George, that's me, Tony, Robert, and Zoe, 4 of us, and then we worked ourselves off. We had this, which we still have, principle of, we don't get done till we get done.
Yes.
Most people just look at the time, it's 6, and they get up and they go. No, we found ourselves at the office till 11:30 p.m. There are times where we spend the night working, trying to impress our clients or our prospects, the quality of work that we had. So I also had something which, I'm Christian, right? David, the kind of men he had, they were dejected, he had to build solid people out of nothing. He was given an army of incompetent people. I did not have incompetent people, but I had people that I had to train, and one thing that I think a lot of CEOs and business leaders must do is to train people on how to work for them. Because a lot of times people learn stuff from different places, right? But when you bring them into your space, because you're conscious of the culture that you're trying to build, you have to retrain them. The 21st century educated person is the one who can learn, unlearn, and relearn. That's the kind of person that you want to engage in your organization. I look out for, now I'm getting to the hiring prerequisites. I have a standardized structure for hiring. I believe that an organization should operate by capacity, not opportunity. I'll explain what I mean by that. Look at a factory, for instance. You build a factory where you produce bottles, right? And then you have the capacity to produce 10,000 bottles a day, but you only get to sell 6,000 a day. Now, what most people will do is instead of producing 10,000 bottles a day, they will start to produce 6,000 bottles a day. They are now operating based on the opportunity that the market is presenting to them. But if you're operating by capacity, I will continue to produce my 10,000 bottles. However, I'm going to start thinking up ways by which I can increase my demand. Okay, so how did I bring this into my company? I say, you know what? We're 5 now. We're going to get to 10 in the next 3 months. I need to look for enough demand to accommodate the 5 new people that are joining us. And I need to look for enough demand to give us enough money to pay the 5 new people that will be joining us. So I started building, strategically like that. Today we're 30, and this is just 4 years, barely 4 years. We'll be 4 years in February, but we've built a team of 30 people. Over time, we've employed about 47 people. Of course, some people left, different reasons. The attrition rate in a startup is usually very high. So ours is reasonably okay. And the reason is because some people won't just believe in the vision enough to stay. They think, oh no, I want to work with a bigger company, a very big company that's been in existence for 30 years and all of that, which is fine, but we've been able to build a strong recruitment process. We look out for 3 things. We look out for the character, we look out for the competence, and we look out for chemistry, 3 C's. We look out for character, we look out for competence, and we look out for chemistry. I choose character over competence every day, okay? I want to see someone who is teachable. I want to see someone who is not proud. I want to see someone who can learn. I want to see someone who understands, who listens. If you're the greatest person, no, if you're the greatest salesperson and you're not a great person, right? It simply means that you're a great salesperson who is a terrible human being. Right. So I'm coming from a point of view that you have to be a great human being first before you're a great whatever you want to be, before you're a great accountant, before you're a great salesperson, before you're a great strategist, before you're a great designer, before you're a great copywriter. You have to be a great person. So I'm looking for amazing people, people who are malleable, people who, have a very high adaptability quotient, because most people can't adapt. Okay, for instance, an example. I think I'm talking too much. I hope I'm not.
You good? It's so good. I'm taking it all in. But I just want to reiterate a couple of things you said, a few things you said, and I know the people need to hear this. First, you said you should operate. A culture of the house determines the impact of the team. That's so important for people to get. The culture of the house determines the impact of the team. Then you said, let me see, I made mental notes because I'm trying not to be rude with my notepad looking down, but then you said you should operate as a business, you should operate from capacity, not opportunity. That's so good. And then you said, people, I'm repeating this for myself and you. Then you said when you're hiring or bringing or growing your team, you're looking for 3 things: character, capacity, and chemistry. So good. Absolutely. So good. But first, I got to go back because you said something that I know many Americans are scratching their heads about. You said in Nigeria, you save all your money to buy a house or a car. It doesn't matter. So what's the price point of an average house in Nigeria, Abuja?
Oh wow, no, Abuja is high. It depends on the area. I've done some real estate in Atlanta, for instance. So an area in, compared to a place like Atlanta, Nigeria is cheap, if you get what I mean. However, there are some places that are quite prime, like an area like Maitama. A 5-bed or a 4-bed in an area like Maitama is going to go up to 150 million, 150. Okay, no, I have to break that to your currency. How do I do this? 150 million. I'm just going to use my calculator. I saw numbers. 150 million naira to dollars right now is about 400,000.
Okay, so essentially you're saying that a person potentially, and this is the culture of Nigeria, will save up 400,000 in our dollars, if you will, to buy a home.
Yeah.
Where does that mentality come from?
Now, however, the kind of people who can save up $400,000 may not need to save it up. It means they earn big. So the average man in Nigeria, cannot even afford a home. Yeah, it can. The average man. Now, bear in mind that this is a population of almost 200 million people. Right. That's why I said the average man, because the people who buy homes, I mean, you have a huge housing gap in Nigeria to start with. So the people who buy homes are not more than 20 to 30% of the population.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have a lot of mortgages and all of that going on for you in America, because you have a credit line, you have good credit score and all of that. You can buy a house, you can buy a car. We can't do that here. We can't.
Wow.
But that's not the topic for today.
Wow. It's just so it's go ahead.
Yeah, so you have areas that are a lot less. You have areas where you can buy a home for $100,000, or I don't think there's any way you can buy a home for less than that, or maybe in some places you can buy for like $50,000 or $60,000, but those are not prime areas. Okay. Some of the most expensive houses in Africa are in Lagos and Abuja, because you have the gap between the rich and the poor is extremely wide. Extremely wide. Yeah, you have a depleting middle class in Nigeria. It's depleting, so you're either up there or you're down.
Wow.
And you have the extremely poor as well, who live below $1 a day. You have the extremely poor, because you still have rural areas in Nigeria, so yeah, it's not exactly
on that wise. I just have to, because I'm bringing in some thoughts that I've been learned, because I have Nigerian friends, Ghanaian friends, all people, they're Americanized though.
Right.
So the concept of many of us in America, when it comes to especially Nigerians, is they're very serious when it comes to education and career. True. And you find that many of them focus on fields like medicine, et cetera, So generally speaking, many Americans think that most Nigerians, and maybe that's just the Americanized ones, but most of them have a huge focus when it comes to getting a good career, making good money, providing for their family. So is that maybe for just a certain sector, or is that a common thread and maybe just some people just don't make it?
Well, I personally think that every Nigerian given an opportunity, no matter what they do, they use it well. So you're exposed to a lot of Nigerians who are schooling abroad and stuff. These guys know how tough it is back here. They don't want to come back. They want to give it their best over there. They want to get the best result, get the best job so they can get a green card, and all of that. They want to work themselves off to make sure that they make the best of the opportunity that's been given. Okay, so even the Nigerians that, come on, the Nigerians that are into cyber fraud and all of that, they do exceptionally well in quotes. That's because once a Nigerian puts her mind to something, trust me, like we go all the way in. We're very resilient. We have a very strong spirit, in terms of working hard, in terms of doing things extremely well. So we always come out tops in whatever we do. We also have a very domineering culture. Okay, so we appear in a room with people from other places and we want to subdue them. We have that kind of spirit. You find that common with most Nigerians. So that would account for how we perform, exceptionally well in school, in careers, and all of that. I think it's because where we're coming from, it feels like someone who is cursed already, and he just has to make the best out of whatever is given to him because it's tough. I'll be quite frank with you. It's tough. I get exposed to a lot of stories every day, of people going through stuff, and it just brings you to a compassionate place, and you begin to think of how you can help, But when you find people who have gone out, they do whatever it is within every legal context to make sure that they don't have to return to whatever it is that they left behind. So there's that consciousness at the back of their mind. I'm going to make the best out of this. I'm not going home to that crap. It's tough. You just have a very unfortunate situation, which is caused by leaders who don't really care, about the furtherance of the nation. They are more concerned about amassing wealth, for themselves and in their pockets. Because if you check the net worth, now, very interesting story. Nigeria as a country, in terms of net worth, is valued higher than United Arab Emirates, which is Dubai. So you expect a lot more, because of that. But I'm sorry, man. The case is terrible. Yeah.
Wow. You spoke of leadership. That takes us right to the next phase, which is you have a philosophy that you live by and you definitely have built your company by, and that is if you are to lead, you should be eating last. I thought that was just so phenomenal. Explain that concept and where you got that.
Okay. So I was telling you about a story, how I joined someone. We were in a partnership, right? We're trying to build a digital marketing firm and all of that. And he was a terrible leader. I believe he's a better person now, but as a then, it was a terrible leader. And I saw everything I never wanted to become in him, And so that was, most of my philosophies are formed from my experiences, so I started thinking about leadership differently. I believe that there are five major things that a leader does. The first one is a leader sees. I talked about that. He must be able to see. He must have vision. The moment the leader cannot see, we don't know where we're going anymore. It's just like someone who's driving a car. If you carry 3 other people in your car with you and you're going out and suddenly the person driving loses his sight, we're doomed. So the leader must see. It's so important. The second thing is emotional. People who you. So you can't expect to lead people if you're not being an example. If you want people to come early, come early. If you want people to work hard, work hard. If you want people to measure what they're doing, measure yours. If you want people to be diligent, be diligent. If you want people to be respectful, be respectful. If you want people to be loving, be loving. You must show them. People only know what you show. Another thing the leader must do is it must be seen, it must be visible. Okay. I also have something I believe in. Business is presence. People perform better when they know that they're being monitored or being measured. People will always perform better because they're parameters, right? They know that someone is going to check what I've done. They know, oh, this guy could be looking at the CCTV and looking at what I'm doing right now. So there's just that consciousness when a leader is present. Leaders who are absent from the team would always have a reduction in performance because they're not there. So the people, when they see their leader, they're motivated. They're pushed to do better. So the leader must be seen. And then the one that brings me up to your question is the fact is the one, a leader must sacrifice. So I remember a particular time I had one car. I had to give this car to my staff, to be driving around because he was coming from a far place. I'm like, you know what, you need this car more than I do. The car I'm talking about wasn't in a good condition, but that was what we had then. And this was 2017. As of today, I mean, I can count how many cars I've bought, for staff, because it's important, in this, you're looking at me like, why is a car important? In Nigeria, it's important. I mean, you could, I went to London for some time and I did not use a car, but I was using trains to go around. It was so easy and comfortable. You don't even have that in Nigeria to start with. You have to literally do what is called along. I don't want to explain what that means, but it simply means like what you have with lift, where you can pull, and then different people. But on this one, you're standing on the road, you're rushing for, just, if you have time, just go on YouTube and just search for people struggling to get into a downfall or something. You see what I'm talking about, so you have to provide means, for people to move around. So I have a big plan to reward my staff. It's too important. And I'm having to take that in phases, and create budgets that will help. There's an important part of leadership, which is finance, but that's not what we're talking about today, but I must be able to carry people along, even in my planning. What is for instance, think about this, what is the future for someone who stays with you for 10 years? What are your plans for that kind of person? What's the person going to benefit for giving you 10 years of their life? Those are different things that you must put in perspective while you're planning. So while I was taking that 1 year off, I learned that I must lead by sacrifice. And what does this mean? Since the pandemic started, the whole drama and everything started in March, I only got paid in August. So March, April, May, June, July, 5 months, I didn't earn a dime. I got paid in August, while every other person was getting paid.
Wow.
But I'm a leader. I have to make the sacrifice rather, and that's what I mean by you must eat last, okay? Because you're a custodian. I believe that your resources have been placed in your hands: people, money, machines. The 3 M's of management: man, money, machines. They've been placed in your hand, and you must be a good custodian of the resources. So if you see the parable of talents, right, like some guy just goes to hide the resources, another one multiplies it, and the person who multiplies the resources, got more. So these resources that have been placed in my hands, are they going to be better for it, or are they going to be worse for it? The only way I can ensure that they're better is by putting them first. So I'm saying or take the highest chunk of your resources and point to your people. No, I'm saying before you live the luxurious life, before you buy the flashy cars, before you take the expensive vacation, before you hire the private jet to jet out to an island somewhere and all of that, make sure that you take care of the resources, in quotes, people who God has sent your way. I find that very instructive for me. In 2018, I took the entire team to Dubai, and this is because I wanted a lot of things, right? So I wanted In fact, probably only 2 or 3 had been there before. So I wanted them to experience it. I wanted them to see life differently. You know, traveling out of Nigeria is a big deal, by the way. You know, so taking that entire team, many of them, they didn't even have a passport as at then. So I had to even pay for some passports, you know, but it's something that most business leaders wouldn't do because they feel I'm paying your salary, I'm paying your salary. I don't have to be involved. You know, I don't have to care about all of that. But for me, it was more of investing in the people that have been sent my way, you know, so it's a matter of putting their needs, making their needs priority. You know,
Yes.
you don't expect someone to perform optimally when they have challenges, right? When there are issues they're going, psychological issues or mental issues they're going through. You have to make sure that you put in place provision to help them through, you know, life. The challenge, there's too many challenges. We're in a developing nation. Okay, so we have so much that we're going through already. You just have to be a source of hope and a source of light to your employees. And that's how it is for us, you know. So I would always consider myself as the last to eat. Everyone must have eaten and is fine and is satisfied, and then I should or I've earned my right to eat. And that is sacrifice, you know, and it's typically how any leader should behave, you know, which is why I said I think the problem in Nigeria is leadership, because you find that a lot of them just try to feed themselves and their immediate family, you know, not thinking about the people. So because of that mindset, I mean, if you unceremoniously remove all the allowances and all the payments they get, I don't think anybody will run for office in Nigeria again. You know, they wouldn't, yeah, because for them it's not a thing of sacrifice, it's an opportunity to eat what you call the national cake, you know, to take a slice of it, to take a share of it, you know. So a leader must always eat last. I also add to that statement, I say, as you become more successful, you should build a longer table and a shorter fence.
Yes.
You know, what people do is as they get successful, they build a higher fence and they have a shorter table. So they've cut out a lot of people who could have potentially, you know, been part of their growth, who can come and also grow just because they exist. You know, I always say this as well. I say every morning when I wake up, how many people also wake up and thank God that I'm alive? You know, because I mean, there are a lot of people that will think, man, George, thank you for George. You know, one of my mentors told me last week, he said, the fact that he's staying up matters to a lot of people, you know. So it's not just staying up for himself, he's staying up for a generation. You know, he has to continue to thrive because a generation is grateful that he exists. You know, so until you begin to see how impactful your role is as a leader on the lives of many people, think about the ripple effects. If someone is in Africa is earning, in Nigeria is earning from your company, is also taking care of 2 or 3 other people. So if you've hired 30 people, trust me, you're feeding 90 or 120.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so good. It just reminds me, and it kind of just, I guess, goes to the biology of people. I don't know how many other people cook. I don't know if you cook. You cook, George?
Yeah.
You do? So what I do, I cook, and I cook typically a lot when I cook for many people. And the thing about it is I'm always least hungry when I'm finished. So I'm not even in a position to enjoy the food. It's like I might nibble, but mostly I enjoy the next day after everyone else has sat down, eaten, have gotten there, like you say, gotten satisfied. And typically I don't enjoy the food until the next day. So it just, when you were talking, it just kind of sparked that whole idea, like, wow, God wires us as humans so beautifully. It's like, because I can only imagine that most cooks that I know, and I mean real cooks that are used to cooking a lot of food holiday season, they really don't feel like, or they don't have an appetite after they're done. They're just
Wow.
waiting for everybody else to enjoy, and maybe the next day they'll really get to enjoy the food. So it really just speaks to the leadership that you're saying, eating last, you know?
Yeah.
So if you're a leader and you're cooking the meal and making sure that the community is eating, you should be the last one to partake.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, because your mission is to feed, not to eat.
Yep.
Wow. So beautiful. I love that. Okay, we got to talk branding because that's your thing. Branding is something that has been in our climate really a lot, especially in this new era. But it's been in existence for many years. But many misunderstand it. They misunderstand what branding is. Explain, what is branding as a professional in the branding space? What is it exactly?
Okay, excellent. I would start by telling you how branding started. You know, it's too important for us to trace it back to history. So in this part of the world, I really don't know about the States, but in this parts of the world, there was a time that the means of exchange was barter. Okay, the only way commerce could happen was barter. So it was what you call trade by barter. So there was no dollars, there was no naira, there was no pounds. So if I wanted meat, red meat, I would go with some tubers of yam, right? It's too medieval, it's too funny, like I can't even picture it. Like, I want red meat, so I walk into, let's say, Target or Walmart or wherever, and I go with some tubers of yam and I say, give me red meat, and I exchange the yam for the meat. That was how trade was, at that point in time. So people started experiencing differences in taste. Right. So they started noticing that, yam from George's farm tasted a lot better than yam from Cornell's farm. Right. So they were more, they started having interest, right? And there was a higher demand from the yam from George's farm. So I always wanted my tuber of yams to come from George's farm and not Cornell's farm. So that desire for differentiation, there was a need to differentiate which yam is coming from George's farm, which yam is coming from Cornell's farm. There was a need to differentiate, and that was how branding started. So they started putting marks and symbols of colors and all of that. So if it's coming from George's farm, they'll put an X or they'll write G, in purple on it. And if it's coming from Cornell's farm, they'll write a C in red, and that was how branding started. Branding started because there was a need for people to differentiate their products from other competing products. So that tells me that branding is differentiation. And that is because a lot of people do so many similar things. We need a reason to differentiate ourselves. And that is what leads to branding. However, to fully explain what branding is, we must define what a brand is. So Jeff Bezos, right, he believes that a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So excellent. With the analogy I gave you now, I said that people noticed that the yam was sweeter from George's farm. So, I'm interested in the yam from George's farm. That means I have a brand, right? And my brand has a promise, which is my favorite decision. That brand name with promise. So every time I thought about George's farm, the promise it gave me was sweet yam. Every time I thought about Cornell's farm, the promise it gave me was bitter yam. So I had a promise attached to my name. Coca-Cola has a promise attached to his name. Apple has a promise attached to their name. Samsung has a JBL, Beats by Dre, Think about any brand out there, Target, Walmart, Amazon. They all have promises attached to their names. That promise is what branding is. The ability to sell your differentiating factor, to sell your differentiator, to let people know that this is why you stand out. This is why you should be chosen amongst the crowd. That is branding. You walk into a store every day. If you walk into Best Buy, you are hit by at least 100 brands. If you walk into Target, if you walk into any of those stores, you're hit by at least 100 brands on display on the shelf. You will naturally go for the ones that you're familiar with their promises. And that's what branding is, the ability to sell your differentiator. Okay, so I usually ask this question: what promise is your name making? So as I am like this, for everyone who has experienced this, anytime they hear my name anywhere, they're going to remember things I said. Oh, this guy is a fantastic guy to listen to. That's the promise my name is going to make. So that's branding. Branding is a coordinated series of activities that builds your differentiator and implants it in the mind of your prospect, okay? Giving them the ability to influence others to make a decision in your favor on their next purchase. That was a very long definition.
Very good, very good. Look,
yeah.
Very good. You said the differentiating factor that sets you apart pretty much in the marketplace, but it's attached to a promise. So when you see George's yam, you know it's sweet. When you see my yam, you got to add sugar. So I'm just gonna start selling my yams with a bottle of honey. How about that?
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's fantastic. You know, and that's where you come to improvisation, right? So you must be able to identify your weaknesses, and you must be confident enough to talk about your weaknesses in a way that it becomes a strength. A lot of people run away from that. They call it the elephant in the room. I have a weakness as a brand. I don't want to talk about it. You need to talk about your weakness. However, you must be able to communicate it in a way that shows that you are actively working to make up for it, which is where you improvise, so you must, it's all about, it's a never-ending journey. Branding, there's no destination. It's a never-ending journey. You must consider yourself malleable enough to improve, to change, to grow as a brand every day. Okay, you work on yourself, you change you see everybody does this thing. They rebrand from time to time. They improve on their logo, they improve on their service and all of that. The concept is you must be able to shape your narrative in such a way that is favorable to the ears of your prospect. And how do you do that? You do that by building content. You do that by tying your content to the context that is relevant to your prospect. And then you do that by being consistent. A lot of people start well, but they don't continue. So it just goes down. How consistent can you be even when you're only getting 3 likes? Are you going to continue or you're going to cave in? You must be consistent. You only win when you're consistent. I read this somewhere. If you want to dig a big hole, you have to stay in a spot. Okay. If you want to dig a very big hole, you have to stay in a spot, because if you dig one spot, you move to another, you have small holes. But if you stay on one spot and you keep digging, you'll have a big hole. There's a concept called top of mind awareness. What this means is if I ask you, for instance, now you think about the top 5 car brands that'll come to your mind now. I don't know what it's going to be over there, but maybe you said Mercedes and all of that, but top 5 brands means they have achieved what's called the top of mind awareness. Literally, they've rented a space in your mind, in your memory. You know, they've rented a space in your memory. So you must strive for memorability. You know, and sometimes memorability is not only from the experience. Sometimes it is from the communication of the brand. You know, there are brands that I have not tested, but I remember them. I have seen that, I've been exposed to them well enough to know their name, to know their slogan, to know their color, to know their signature tunes and all of that. You know, so we must shape the narratives in our favor and we must be consistent while doing it. So we must have a brand story. You know, what's your story? People are inspired by stories. There's a story behind every famous brand that you see today. They set out to accomplish a mission. You know, and I read something funny recently about spiritual marketing. You know, how people are more inclined to building cult-like following. So like the Harley Davidson, you know, they want to have this cult like Apple. You know, so there was a time um, Apple was the only one who made white earpieces. You know, so you have the white earpiece in your ear and all of that. You know, other people were on black. You know, it was black earpiece that Nokia used to do then. This is a long time ago, by the way. You know, so it was like a snob symbol. If you had the white earpiece, you're in.
Yeah.
You know, and you didn't have it, you're just there. So it was a snob symbol. It was a sign of accomplishment. You know, like, oh, I own an iPhone. I'm telling you real story, like real life story, you know, especially in Nigeria. You own an iPhone, you've won.
Yes, yes.
You know? So yes, you must create a brand story. You know, can people talk about your brand and feel proud to be associated with something greater than them? People always want to be part of stories. So are you going to give them a role to play in your brand by creating a story that is compelling, inspiring enough for them to see themselves in it? We can all see ourselves in stories of other brands, and that is why they get our patronage. We can see ourselves in Zoom story today because it's making it possible for this to happen. We can see ourselves in Facebook story today, you know, because we can reach millions of people across the world, you know, from the comfort of our rooms. These things have been made possible because some people dared to create a story. You know, I was reading about Google. You know, they have this phenomenal thing they do. They divided their businesses into two. They have the alphabet part, which is your YouTube, your Gmail, and all of that, and then they have what they call the other bets. Now, the other bets are companies that are not as successful as the Google, the YouTube, and all of that. You know, those are the other bets, right? So on the alphabet part, you know, of what's it called, the alphabet part of Google, they build phenomenally. Now, what they do is they try to get people to test their products. And based on the testing that they do, they revise these products, okay, to make sure that it takes into consideration the people's habits, feedback, responses, and all of that. Now, this ties ultimately into the experience that we all have today. Right. So if these guys don't do that, we'll have loads of complaints. But because they've reached out to people like you and I to experience the brand even before it comes out, right? It gives it an advantage over other people. Now, it's shocking to know that Google is not the first search engine that came out.
No.
You know, Google is number 18 on the list. I still saw it yesterday. Wow. So you can imagine coming from number 18 to becoming the market leader. You know, it shows that they put a lot of attention into ease of use, you know, and which is what brought about all of this. So build experience, take into consideration that you want to involve people in your branding. Can I be part of your brand story? The moment I can see myself, not just as a part, but as a hero in your story, I would want to be a part of it. You know.
So good. So good. Listen, we have to discuss, you have, when it comes to business, you have a few movies that you recommend. And I saw the list and I was like, and there were a couple on there that I was like, I love that movie. But I want to get your commentary on why you think these a couple of these movies are important for entrepreneurs to watch. And the first one is The Wolf of Wall Street. That's one of my favorite movies. I love it. I love the whole thing of it. But why is that important for entrepreneurs? Why is that movie important for entrepreneurs?
Amazing. Okay, so I've done a lot of trainings on sales, right? I love sales. I like to sell. I like to learn how to sell, and I like to teach people how to sell. I came across that movie at a time when I was just starting out. So I took the movie as a training. I took the movie as a seminar, kind of like a seminar. And then I watched every step of the growth of that company. And I learned 4 major things. The first thing I learned was how to sell. I've also read the book, and you could check it out. It's called The Way of the Wolf. Mm-hmm. So that was written by Jordan Belfort himself, and then in that book, it teaches the art of persuasion and straight line selling. I've read that book at least 5 times. I love it so much. Yeah. So the first thing is I learned how to sell. Second thing is I learned that my habits can destroy my business. A lot of times, those guys, they had many opportunities to salvage Stratton Oak. They had many opportunities, but their habits kept bringing them down. They had too many nasty habits that kept them down, that kept pulling them back. Third thing I learned was you can't get away with bad things. You can't. It's better you correct whatever is wrong with your system, okay, than ending up in jail, which was their story. If you go on Netflix, you will see the Steve Madden documentary where he also talked about his own story, because he was the guy that they introduced to the house. They say, oh, this is Steve Madden. We're going to push his sales up. So in his own documentary, he shared his side of the story, and how he ended up in jail as well because of that transaction. Bottom line, you would not get away with bad stuff. And number 4, if you do not master your money, no, let me say it in a nicer way. If you don't deal with money, your money will deal with you.
Yes.
So they were frivolous spenders. They went bankrupt. Those guys, they did everything wrong. And that's why I really like the movie, because I learn a lot from people's mistakes so that I don't repeat them.
Yes.
The reason why history repeats itself is because people don't learn from it. So I looked at that movie and I saw those 4 things, and it was quite insightful to me. But the most important one was how to sell. I think that Jordan Belfort is an exceptional salesperson, and it's quite inspiring. He knows his onions. And Leonardo was able to bring that out. He played the role with so much grace and finesse. I was blown away, So having seen the movie, having read the book, The Way of the Wolf, I think that is an amazing movie. And let me surprise you, I watched it yesterday again. Yeah, I did.
It's been a while for me. I got to check it out again, but it was an exceptional movie. But this time when I'm watching, I'm going to pull out the key principles that you're talking about and really hone in on these lessons that you're saying aren't there. Yeah. One of the other movies is, and one that I had many thoughts about, and it made me angry at a point, and then I was like, well, I had so many thoughts, and that was The Founder. And anybody who has seen The Founder, it's about Ray Kroc, who actually founded McDonald's. But I want you guys to watch it. But the story is, it disappoints you at first because it's like, well, wow, he just robbed them. And then it's like, well, they didn't know what they had. But I got to get your commentary. What is it that entrepreneurs can take away, or what did you take away from the movie as a businessman?
Okay. The first thing is, you don't have to create ideas. That's the first thing I saw, right? So McDonald's wasn't original to him, so he didn't create McDonald's. He only turned it into a business. So there are a lot of people with beautiful ideas that will remain as ideas. Not everybody is a businessman. And once you identify that strength in you, the ability to turn ideas to cash, you need to just go and shop for ideas. Some people are idea generators. Some people turn ideas into funds. And that guy is that kind of person who sits back, looks at an idea. I mean, look at what he did. Phenomenal. He was able to build a real estate empire from McDonald's. How did he do that? He made sure that everyone who took a franchise paid rent to him. Now, aside selling burgers, his income from real estate grew so high. That was mind-blowing to me. This, which is my second principle, is that there are always multiple streams hidden in every idea.
So good. So
always good. Multiple streams. So even the Garden of Eden, which was one idea, had 4 rivers flowing into it. There are always multiple streams hidden in one idea. So I want to make an iPhone. That was the idea. I want to make a phone that combines the music and everything all in one. What are my multiple streams? Oh, I'm going to sell apps on this phone. Oh, I'm going to sell music. People will pay for their music, to listen to the music. I'm going to sell AirPods, earphones, and all of that from one single idea. And that is my third point, which I said earlier. Can you actually see and predict habits? The brothers could not see. They could not see. They were short-sighted, myopic in their vision. But he could see that if we get this product, even though they don't have the habit of eating burgers in these areas, we're going to get them to love the culture. We're going to sell it to them and present it to them in a way that they will love it and will become a household name.
And that it did.
Yeah, he did, absolutely. The fourth, and probably for me the most important, is I would not be moved by sentiments. Now, the sentiments were, oh, you're evil, you're trying to steal our company. Oh, you cheated us and all of that. But this guy was too focused. He knew exactly what he was doing and he kept at it. And the fifth is always document and have proper documentation. And the reason is because if the brothers were smart, right, and they had someone legal advise them, they would have signed a better contract. They would have pushed for some terms, but no, they were not. He was.
So good, so good. Listen, I've gotta, you're my brother in faith, so I've gotta dig into this, and you've hinted on it throughout the conversation, but how has, or I should say, what role has faith played in developing who we see today, this businessman, this entrepreneur? What role has your faith in God played in that?
Right. I was just having a conversation just before I came on this, and I said that I hardly see anyone who, can do business at some kind of level and not have some, I'm trying to be careful, and not have some form of spiritual inclination. I don't care where they belong. I don't care where they swing, but there's just this desire in us, because it's a tough call. I tell you, it's a tough. Sometimes all you have to lean on is the word. as a Christian, I'm telling you, as a Christian, all I have to lean on is the word. Is what does the word say? It says, everything I lay my hands on will prosper. It says in Job 8:7, it says, though my beginning is little, my latter end will yet greatly increase. So I'm walking with that perspective. It affects the way I approach my business. It says to me, none shall be able to stand against me in Joshua. I approach my competition like that. I go for a pitch knowing that I'm winning. So I think that for me, I have been able to do a lot because of that background that I have. I know that things are controlled from the spiritual. I know the physical is controlled from the spiritual. I believe, okay, no, I should say I believe that the physical is controlled from the spiritual. And so because of that belief, I rely a lot on the spiritual. I sort things out first in the spiritual realm before I take them on in the physical. And it has worked for me. I'm one of the few people that believe so much in a revival that is going to happen. You know, I think we're going to see a tremendous move of God amongst the young people, where a lot of people, not necessarily pastors and all of that, will be winning souls, you know, aggressively through their strides in the corporate sector, in the business world, and the, you know, in the various industry. I'm one of the people that believe that we will become walking, talking billboards for Jesus. I'm one of the people that believe, you know, that people will start asking us, why are you different? You know, just the way the Israelites, even while they were living, you know, in Egypt, Goshen was protected, Goshen was covered. You know, they were victors, even in a victim situation. You know, the Bible talks about how whilst the Egyptians continued to torture them and, you know, punish them and all of that, they kept on increasing. You know, so even as it looks like things are going to get tough and all of that, I strongly believe in what the covenant says, you know, for people of promise, for children of God, and which is that we're in the end times. And in the end times, there's something particular about the end times. It says he will pour out his spirit across all men. And what does that? What does the Spirit do? The Spirit releases excellence. The Spirit releases ease. The Spirit releases wealth, prosperity. The Spirit, it's not just perilous times. It says, while there are perilous times, I will pour out my Spirit. You know, so I hold on to that a lot. And I know that we're in that season. I'm sensitive to those times, you know. I am a man of faith. And that's the truth. I've been through tough times, but I know, especially one very interesting verse that stuck with me growing up, you know, as a Christian, which is Proverbs 4:18. It says, the path of the just is like a shining light that shineth, you know, brighter and brighter until the perfect day. It simply means that it only gets brighter. It only gets brighter. It doesn't go dimmer. So I don't expect that my yesterday's result is going to be better than today's result. No, Proverbs 4:18 tells me it's going to shine brighter and brighter. So what words are you, if you walk into my building, my office building, right, you read on the ceiling, I have a scripture on the ceiling, and then it says, it's Job 8:7. It talks about your beginning was little, because like I told you earlier, we started our company, it was very little, but the Bible says our latter end shall greatly increase, greatly increase. So every morning I see that scripture is a testament to my covenant with God for an increase, even as I progress. You know, a lot of people move but don't progress. You know, so that's tough. But I also see the flip side, which is the complacency, okay, that sometimes creeps in because of our reliance on our faith. So some people are praying, but they're not preparing. You know, so I took 1 year to prepare. I was praying as well, but I was preparing. because the worst thing that could happen to you is you not being prepared for the provision that you're praying for, you know. So you must be prepared for the provision that you're praying for. If not, the weight will sink you, you know, the weight will sink you. A lot of people read this scripture in a bad light, which is, it will never put more on you than you can bear. But you could also read it in a good light, which is the fact that it will never put success on you that you can't bear. Yeah. So you better prepare. You better prepare for that thing that you're praying for, because if you're not ready, you're not going to get it. If you've not built the muscles to carry the weight that comes with that thing that you're praying for, you're not going to get it. You know, so preparation is too important, you know, as well. So I'm trying to balance it, you know, so it doesn't look like, oh man, I'm just praying. While I'm praying, I'm preparing for the provision that I'm expecting as well. Yeah.
Ooh, so good, so good. My soul is happy. My soul is happy. Y'all give it up for my brother, George Omoraro, all the way from Abuja, Nigeria. I appreciate you so much. Listen, we're going to get ready to get out of here, but I've got to get you to play this little game with me before we go. So I'm going to give you I'm going to give you several, well, about five. I'll give you five businessmen. And I just want you to give me one word that comes to mind when you think of them. So let's try first. Jeff Bezos.
Wealth.
Yeah, indeed. Especially since the headline came out last week, I think it was.
Wealth. That's all I can think about.
Bill Gates.
Innovation.
Steve Jobs.
Wow, Steve Jobs for me will actually be innovation too. Innovation. Okay. But second word for Steve Jobs for me, allow me, will be creativity.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. We talked about him earlier, but I'll say it again. Ray Kroc.
Smart.
Yeah. I was gonna say visionary for sure.
Right.
And lastly, George Omoraro. What's your one word?
Excellence.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. George, I appreciate you. I appreciate your hunger for God and the excellence that you just mentioned that you portray in the industry. Thank you so much for being a great example.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Listen, so I know it's after like almost 12:30 midnight there, so you have to be up at 6 o'clock, 7.
Yep.
So I'm gonna release you to go to bed. Have a beautiful rest, and we'll talk again real soon.
Surely. Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on this. I'm grateful.
Anytime. We'll talk soon.
All right. Surely.
Bye-bye.
Bye.